Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Toy Guys Talking, and my guest today is Ninja level Patreon supporter Matthew Crapse?
Yes.
I got it right. Okay, so rolling the dice, and I'm very excited to have you on here. One of the features of being a Ninja level supporter on the Patreon tribe, looking for my pillow to put under my arm here, is you get to be on Toy Guys Talking. So when I first started the Patreon, I actually had it just listed as an interview, and nobody took me up on it because I guess people didn't want to be interviewed on a YouTube channel to talk about toys. But now that it's this thing called Toy Guys Talking, and it's just this fun, easy breezy thing, I'm so happy, to be able to talk to some of the Patreon tribe. So it's awesome to have you on here, and heartfelt thank you for supporting the channel. Really appreciate it. Patreon is such an awesome thing for video creators because it goes back into the channel. And ever since I started the Patreon, I think my videos have gotten way better because better equipment, better computer, hard drive space, lights. It just all goes into the videos. So big thank you to you and to the entire Patreon tribe for supporting.
Yeah, no problem. And from my perspective, a big thank you to you and what you do, and the vintage toy community, the toy community in general, and really the vintage kind of everything community, right? So
well, I appreciate it.
It's a couple years ago. I started to kind of I started looking at YouTube for various channels, and I more recently landed on yours, and it really just reinvigorated my interest in the vintage scene. And up until recently, I really hadn't been into it. I got back in G.I. Joe like all the way in July, and it's been just going nuts since. So and a lot of that's due to you and your channel. So it's very appreciated.
That's very humbling, and I'm honored. Thank you so much. I love this stuff, and for a long time it just seemed like it wasn't getting the proper love, nostalgia that it deserved because there wasn't a new movie. And There's just this thing that's going on, like whenever somebody remembers, I hear it all the time, someone remembers an old toy line they haven't thought about in years, like Mask. And how many times do you hear this? They need to make a new movie, right? Why is the new movie the thing that's supposed to validate this thing's existence again? A new movie is not a brush that will take the dust off. A brush is a thing that will take the dust off. The original, I just happen to have the Terrordrome here because I'm doing history of G.I. Joe 86, but a brush will take the dust off this guy. We don't need a movie to take the dust off of him. So that's what I started to do with my videos. I just said, we don't even need the new 2016, 17, 18, 19 update. The old one is great. Just light it right, shoot it right, love it. Talk about it affectionately with reverence instead of with snark and sarcasm. So, the stuff that I do on my channel, it was showing reverence for the stuff that I grew up on and love, but it was also kind of like a response to some of the things I was seeing on YouTube where people were dismissing and diminishing and belittling this stuff. So I just thought, well, there's another way to do it. So if they want to do that, that's fine. If there's obviously tons of audiences that love that kind of thing. But I took a gamble. I rolled the dice, and I wonder if there's a few more people like me who are like, what if we just looked at this stuff lovingly instead of what a bunch of crap? This stuff is garbage. Look, how did we ever love it? So I'm so humbled and shocked, surprised that so many people have said, I dig what you're doing, because I honestly didn't think there'd be that many. I thought this would be like a niche little minority thing.
Yeah, I don't even know how I stumbled across your page, but I happened across it, and then I was just infatuated from the very start, right? I think when I first started looking at the channel, you had the history, I think, of 82, maybe 82, 83, 84, and then more recently you had the 85, and I really just was enamored with that. And and then I started watching some of the other videos as well. I was kind of honed in on the Joe stuff at first, but I started expanding out a little bit, watching other stuff, and it kind of became a thing where I pretty much, whenever you post a video, I would watch it, regardless of the subject matter, just because I enjoyed the composition and the effort. You can tell you really put a lot of time and effort, and it's just really impressive, right? So, and then I started letting my friends know. It's like, hey, you need to watch these videos, because a lot of them shared. I'm 40 years old, and I have friends that are the same age, and we have all would be excited to have to play with our old toys again, and kind of relive that, and really that's kind of the feeling you get when you watch your videos. You really get that kind of that feeling of kiddom, and enjoying them, and again, that I think that for years, I had always been into collecting, ever since I was a kid, and it was Masters of the Universe, it was Mask, it was G.I. Joe. Joe for me was the big one. But the others, and Transformers, obviously, and then obviously dabbling into some of the smaller stuff, like, the Battle Beasts, things like that, right? So which you featured recently, which again, it's kind of like each time I see a video that you've produced, it's kind of like, man, I just, it just gets you excited again. But for years I collected, various things. I was a huge Predator guy for many, many years, and I still am. I love that movie, loved it since I was a kid. So I started getting into like the Hot Toys. Predators, and I still have it, actually.
How about that blonde Billy? Doesn't that suck?
Right, yeah, exactly. It kind of like, the way they did his hair, yeah. But I had him at one point. I ended up selling him. But the thing is that as much as I enjoyed those, and as the releases kept getting better and better and better, the price also got higher and higher and higher. And it kind of got to the point where, from a space perspective, I was out of room. Because these things, they're big. And, I decided, for years I avoided the vintage Joes intentionally, because I knew it was going to be a huge,
rabbit hole. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was like afraid of it, and there would be times where my wife would link me to like a estate sale in the area, and it would be just tons of Joes. And I'm like, I'm steering clear, I'm avoiding that, and finally, again, I'm not really sure. Well, actually, I do know what it was. So Prime One, which is a statue manufacturer, they came out with some really high-end Joe statues. The first one being Storm Shadow, and then they released Serpentor, and then more recently, I believe Snake Eyes was the next after that, and then Destro, and now I think the next one coming out is Scarlet. Anyway, I went ahead and picked up that Storm Shadow statue. And it's actually right over here. You won't be able to see it, but I'll send you some photos. But so I picked that one up, and I was like, man, that kind of started getting the fire going again, And then the Snake Eyes came out, and so I have them both like kind of facing off against each other. It's really kind of cool looking. But then I was talking to my friends, and I said, and by the way, my dog's walking around, so.
Oh, hello, puppy.
But my friends were like, well, I still have my two friends. No barks. No.
Toy dogs talking.
yeah, exactly. Dogs talking. But
what is he saying? He likes Thundercats?
Yeah. She's a border collie. She's very vocal. I have two. They're both like right beside me. One's like super quiet. One's very vocal.
I love dogs. I've got a Siberian Husky, obviously, because I'm Canada, eh? So I got a Siberian Husky, and I got a little toy fox terrier. So okay. Yeah, I absolutely love dogs.
But a couple friends of mine said, we still have our old Joes from when we were kids. And I said, what? And they're like, yeah, like they're just like up in our parents' attic, and I said, well, that'd be awesome if you could, fish those out. I think it'd be kind of fun to go through them.
Yeah.
And so they did, and like lo and behold, they had like between the two of them, they probably had like 60 original, wow. Joes, from like 82 to probably 87.
Yeah.
And some of them were complete, and most of them were like really pristine. And they were like, well, we see how much like you're into this and it means to you, and like if it's a kickstart to like something cooler or bigger, here you go. So this gave them to me. And
No way.
yeah, they're just like, because from them they were kind of like, they're excited about them.
Yeah.
They were kind of having just as much fun as I was, just kind of messing around with them.
That's
But
amazing.
they, they're like, these obviously they mean more to you, and we, want you to have them, and so, and actually, well, one of my friends has come over to see the collection as it exists now, and he's just really excited about the fact that they're out of the box, and that they're on display.
Yeah.
So anyway, big thanks to them. But that really kind of got me going, and then since then it's just been a whirlwind.
So speaking of space, behind you, the Defiant Space Shuttle Complex.
Right.
Wow, that is the perfect thing to have behind you for Toy Guys
I
Talking.
essentially picked this as the background.
How long have you had that?
Not very long. What I did is I decided to. It's something I always wanted as a kid, and I was into Joe's probably starting in '84. But it really hit its zenith for me probably in like 86, 87.
Okay.
That's when it was really huge for me. And I had many of the things over the years that I compiled. I had quite the Joe collection as a kid, but I just remember seeing, this in like the Sears catalog, and just being like blown away. And of course, like, it's funny because I actually saved the photos of the ads and whatnot, that you can get online, and like the kids like standing next to it playing with it, and like it's like as
tall
big
as the kid, yeah.
Right. So I always remember like just being just blown away by it as a child, and I was like, what, I'm gonna get that thing, like it's joining the collection. So what I did actually is I found one on eBay, just the shuttle and the booster. And it was in really good shape. It was mostly there. And so I went ahead and bought it, and I probably paid a little bit more than they go for, so to speak. But, it's all beauty's in the eye of the beholder, cost is in the eye of the beholder. And it was important for me to kind of start that. And my plan was to buy it and then get the gantry and whatnot later, kind of buy the shuttle booster, restore it, then get the gantry. And I was like, it'll be further out. So I got everything, I cleaned it up, and it ended up being like beautiful, like pristine. Like the shuttle especially is like perfect, no yellowing. I mean, it is awesome. And so I took all the stickers off, I cleaned it up, I spent a lot of time. I get more enjoyment out of actually like the restoration than anything else.
Some people work on cars, some people work on vintage toys. It's the same.
And it's
feeling.
funny because I actually am a car guy, and like my first car was a 1969 Camaro that my dad and I rebuilt, so
that's cool.
So exactly, I kind of like taking something that's dirty and filthy and making it bright and shiny. And so I took it apart, cleaned it up, took the decals off, got some decals, reproduction decals, put it on, got it all spiffed up. And then, I decided, I was like, I got to finish this thing off. Like, the hunger is real. And I actually went down, so semi-local, there's a place in Indiana called Kokomo.
Oh, yeah, Kokomo Toys.
Right. And that's about an hour and a half away, so not too far. So I've been over there several times now since things kind of, got back going from a collecting perspective to pick up, figures or vehicles or whatnot. And they happen to have, a Defiant there, that was complete, or near complete, shuttle and booster and everything. And the shuttle and booster they had wasn't nearly as nice as, of course, as the one that I've got after restoring it. So anyway, I went ahead and bought it.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, to piece it together, because that's what I did with my flag. Two incomplete, beat-up flags combined into one awesome flag, and then you sell off the other pieces, and it takes a giant chunk out of the cost of your complete, Defiant.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I did. So I took the shuttle and booster from the complete one that I got from Kokomo. And actually, it's funny because I have a friend of mine who I grew up with as a child. I grew up in a town that had an Air Force base, and we had kind of a transient kid population because of that. Kids would come in, kids would leave, just because, they were getting moved all over the country, especially in the middle of the 80s, right? So anyway, his name was Michael Shelton, and he moved down to, he ended up in New Orleans. That's where he was at now. but he's also back into the Joe stuff. And so I messaged him like off and on, and I said, hey, I'm going to have an extra shuttle and booster, and they're in pretty good shape and they're complete. And he's like, yeah, send it down my way. So I just actually sent it to him,
man, that's amazing.
this week. And I'm kind of excited for him to get it. He hasn't gotten it yet, so I'm expecting a message any day now that that it's there. So, and I also sent him like the Hiss 2. So I kind of decided that my buddy had told me, he's like, you're gonna have to decide, like you're gonna have to kind of create a window here to at least initially to maybe control the collection a little bit. And I actually kind of agree with that a little bit, especially when you're dealing with like not a whole lot of space.
Right.
So I kind of decided 82 to 87, 88. Actually, 88 was going to be kind of the cutoff.
89, 90.
Yeah, exactly.
94.
So it's funny because, like I'm trying not to go past the 89, 88, 89 range, but it's just what you said. I mean,
I totally get you. I had the cutoff of 86. I grew up on Sunbow. Deke wasn't my cup of tea.
Right.
This is my cup of tea. And 86 was my cutoff. Yeah, right. Like once you get all 86, then you're like, wow, that Rolling Thunder looks really nice. So,
yeah, speaking of which, that's like right up there.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I had one
that was one that I loved when I was a kid. That was one of my favorites.
I never had one growing up, but I picked one up years ago, and it was smashed and mangled and filthy and in horrible condition. And I ended up just selling it for not too much because I didn't get it for too much because it was in such poor condition and missing so much. And I thought, well, in pictures it looks amazing, and I had it, and it just wasn't, it was just taking up more space than giving joy. And then as the years go by, after I sold it, I was like, maybe I just had a really bad one, like beat up and missing too much. I'm not a stickler about having it complete, but maybe it was missing too much. And then I saw one at a local used toy store, and it was almost complete. Anything that was missing was going to be $5 on eBay, like missing missiles altogether. Right. And the price was just insane. It was one of these stores that was like, yeah, we know we could get twice as much for it, but, we're in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. We're not in Toronto. So that's the advantage of living in a smaller kind of suburban town. And I was like, oh, I got to get it. So now I have the Rolling Thunder again in better condition. And wow, it is the ultimate Joe tank. Yep.
Looking back as a kid, of course, I didn't have the Defiant when I was a child, but I did have the Rolling Thunder. And it was probably my number one favorite Joe item. It was either that or like the Sky Striker, right? Everyone has an affinity for the Sky Striker.
Yeah,
but, I just really loved the Rolling Thunder. The size of it, like the missiles going up, is very kind of Cold War era, Russian, right? Kind of Eastern Bloc style, moving what do they call it, ballistic missile, launch.
Missiles have missiles. I mean, how
right.
Overkill is underrated, my friend.
But then it was so cool, how it, folded up, and it was actually very mobile, like if you, push that thing across the floor, it'll roll, it's the Defiant's not like that, right? That thing, it's not going anywhere,
right.
So, but yeah, I mean, that was the cool thing about the Rolling Thunder it was a nice in between, like the smaller tanks and something big like the Defiant. It was like a kind of a nice, compromise.
I was just talking about the Defiant, and I was trying to remember. So it does have wheels on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you'd be a madman to try to.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, but yeah, they're just kind of like right down here. I don't know if you can see my hand or not, but so actually I have it up on a book.
Because it buckles under its own weight, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I frequent obviously 3D Joes, and I know you've had and I can't remember the
Carson Metaxas.
Yeah. And on his Defiant page, he's got like an interview, like it's a very brief snippet with one of the designers, and it talks about the limited amount of time they had to put the Defiant together. It was kind of like a whirlwind, and they underestimated what was required from a weight perspective, and so it really does not. Yeah, it wasn't well designed from that perspective, but it sounds like it was primarily because they didn't have time. They were just scrambling to get it put together. But putting it on, putting a book under it, suspending it just a hair.
I don't understand how they didn't put wheels in the middle of it.
Right.
Just like what is it, the Polar Battle Bear or or even the Snowcat hat. Like, just put
Right.
something under there to.
Something. Yeah, and it's funny. I've actually seen there was one on eBay that I saw that the gentleman that owned it did exactly that, and he did a really good job of taking the same exact wheels. He had bought like an extra maybe 3 sets, and he just ran them down the middle.
Oh,
so
good
like
idea.
when you lift it up, it looked like that was how it was designed. It was quite impressive actually. So,
That's a great
but
idea.
you're exactly right. Something to down the middle. That's all it would have needed.
So here's another tip for the Rolling Thunder. And I just wanted to add to the Rolling Thunder, even though 86 is my cutoff, and I kind of got out of G.I. Joe pretty much after that, a couple years after that. So I don't have as much nostalgia for the 87 and on vehicles, but the Rolling Thunder, it reminds me so much of that vehicle from the Crystals episode where they were transporting those crystals that you had to keep really quiet or they'd explode.
Right. Yep.
And it's not the same vehicle, but it looks so much like it. It's kind of a Sunbow vehicle, so that's why it feels to me more like a Sunbow vehicle than any of the Deke stuff. But the one thing I did with my new Rolling Thunder, which has also just skyrocketed my enjoyment of it, is they're the 25th anniversary versions because I got the originals all on a shelf, but I put my 25th anniversary versions of the original Joes. So, and that never occurred to me before because Rolling Thunder is a later vehicle. So you got to put hardball and fast draw and gridiron in. But when I put Hawk, Breaker, Zap, all those original guys, rock and roll in that thing looks beautiful with the OD green original Joes. It's like designed for them. It's got the console for Breaker, the missile silo controls a Zap, and you got the big laser on the back for Flash. You got Hawk and Steeler in the front. Like, it's made for them.
I agree that particular vehicle in that year harkened back to the earlier, and it's probably had a lot to do with the color, but just the design in general, it was pretty realistic, right? All things considered. So, I mean, it's something that you can actually see existing, to visualize it versus some of the other stuff in like 88 that is starting to get way out there, right? With some of the designs, very sci-fi. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm kind of like you. So if you were to look at how I have it displayed, it's all the figures from that year. And I'm kind of like do that with the vehicles. I keep like for the Defiant, all the figures that are pretty much on there are 87, 88. There's and I did that intentionally. Yeah. Same goes with the Rolling Thunder. So yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you could put I haven't even thought about, but like the 25th guys would be probably awesome on that thing.
Especially since there's no backpack pegs in the Rolling Thunder. A lot of the other vintage vehicles like the Tomahawk, you can't really fit the 25th guys in the the cargo bay because of the backpack pegs. But just try it sometime. Just stick them in there for a couple of minutes to see what it looks like, and you'll be like, what the hey, like this did they have the original guys in mind? Because they don't really, like, that original team doesn't really have a way of getting around. Like, there's the Vamp, which holds 2. There's the Ram, which holds 1, maybe 2. There's the Mobat, which holds 1, maybe a couple more if you sit them on, But when you put the original team, it's like putting them on a shelf, and you're like, the original team. Same deal. It's a shelf for the original team. So I really enjoy that.
I'll have to try that for sure.
USS Flag, haven't got that yet.
So, it's funny you bring that up because my friends Steve and Eric, the guys that, and Aaron and Ruben, they all were ones that gifted me their childhood Joes, so, shout out to all 3 of those guys. They've all asked me. And
a big salute to you for, let's all take a moment to salute Matt here because, you gifting your friend the Defiant parts, to help him out too. That was a giant solid and paying it forward. And I just love hearing that.
So, They have all 3 have asked, when's the flag going to be in the picture, so to speak. I have been, monitoring them online. Kokomo actually had a inbox. It wasn't a sealed box, but they had a new inbox. Like the contents were all sealed.
Yeah, that's the best.
And I was. But of course, it was quite pricey, right? But they had it. They actually ended up selling it. I was super tempted to maybe go after that. But I think with the flag, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take my time. Try to find the right one.
Piece it together again.
Maybe piece something together. And then I said, even if like I'm not able to really display it right now, I'll just I'll just compile everything, and because part of the fun for me is that just kind of making it whole, right?
Yeah.
And then, hopefully in the future I'll have a good opportunity to have a really nice display with the flag. But yeah, it's definitely in the mix. For sure.
I can honestly say, of everything that I have, everything that I've ever had, probably everything I'll ever have, the flag is the one monster that never stops like terrorizing your room, your space, and just blowing your mind at the magnificence of it. I have so many toys that were mind-blowing at first, and then you gotta get used to them and you still love them. But honestly, I don't look at the original Castle Grayskull and go, whoa, right? It's still awesome and I love it, but that whoa factor is gone. The Inhumanoids, when I first got them, I was like, wow, I finally got them and they're amazing and I love them, but now they're that big.
Right.
It's not that big a deal. They're that big. After all these years, especially after the customization I did with the flag, the G.I. Joeberg double-decker with wheels,
right?
That is just a beautiful monstrosity, and it's my biggest hassle that I love dealing with every time I do a shoot, because the first time, and I mentioned it in one of the Patreon exclusives, the behind the scenes one that I recently put up. My first challenge of every video I do in here is, where do I put the flag?
I noticed that on the recent video, yeah.
So if we're shooting this wall, honey, I need a hand. Got to set sail. So just move it a couple inches and okay, it's out of the shot now. And so, but it's an awesome, problem to have. Just,
right.
It's an opportunity. It's such a giant, not even a play set. It's just a table. It's a diorama. It's an environment. And to put it on wheels and to be actually able to move it, that just, even if it's for a couple seconds where you're moving it, like, it is an amazing feeling to be able to move a USS flag around like you're sailing a giant boat. So anyone who's thinking about getting a flag, if hi puppy, see, they agree. Get that flag.
I think she wants to run outside real quick. So
just you letting your dog out there for a second, and you gave me an idea for Patreon exclusive, because I got to sit here and just enjoy your Defiant space shuttle complex, and I'm sitting there going, man, that's beautiful, and it's nice to just kind of sit here and look at this Defiant, and I thought, why don't I do that? So that should be a Patreon exclusive, where I just put the camera on like one of my walls and go, you know what? It's like you're over, you're over to hang out, and just, because I'm always feeling like I got to move the camera. I got to put some, I got to talk, say things, get busy. But sometimes it's nice to just take a breather and just enjoy like a nice, slow kind of panoramic view. So
right.
I think I'll do one of those for the patrons.
So it's funny because, I was thinking about, like, for the Patreon, like, exclusive, like, what would I pick? Right. And, my buddy's like, well, do the Defiant, and I was like, well, I don't know if Michael has the Defiant.
No, I don't. I don't.
He goes, well, have Michael over.
I'll be there tomorrow. I would absolutely, and I guess let me send this out to anyone in my area. I'm in Southern Ontario, Canada, Kitchener. The closer, the better.
Right.
Yeah, I don't travel well much these days, but anyone in my area, if you have a Defiant, hit me up. Because, yeah, even though I don't have it, I would love to do a video on it. The closest I came was a couple of years ago. I had just started the channel, so I wasn't getting as many messages from people going, hey, check this out, check that out. And I love getting the tips and the heads up and stuff. But someone did let me know, hey, there's a Defiant for sale up in the Toronto area. And so I checked it out in the listing. It was on what we call Kijiji here in Canada. It's like a swap meet, buy and sell used stuff. I don't know what they call it in the States, kind of Craigslist type of thing. Sure. So it was a Defiant with box, and like you were describing earlier, the flap was open, but all the bags were sealed.
Wow.
So, and that's right up my alley. I don't care if the box is opened, but sealed bags, like I'm ripping those bags open, trust me. But I don't have the heart to rip open a box. Like that's something that's very, maybe not necessarily precious to me, but I get that it's very precious to some other people. And I can't do that to a sealed box unless it's water damaged and mangled and just not much to look at anyway. So it was $800 Canadian, which probably at the time was about $650 US. So pretty amazing price, you know,
Absolutely.
especially now looking back, it's one of those, why didn't I? And I thought a little bit about it, but you know, I looked around at the room and I saw a double-decker flag, you know, the original Gray Skull, the new Mattel Gray Skull, the Terror Drome, the this and that, and I think I had the Firehouse by that point. I'm not sure, and I was like, you got to reach your limit sometime. Like, so
Right.
I didn't even bother going, honey. Like, I decided then and there, look, you're an Army Joe guy. You're not a Space Joe guy. So.
Right.
It's amazing. I do remember looking at the catalogs as a kid going, wow, just because of the size of it. But that's where I had to draw the line for the space.
Yeah, my wife, you know, when I was telling her about it, you know, and she's been super supportive of, you know, the Joe, you know, the kind of like, well, my collecting in general, because I've always collected stuff. But, you know, she's been cool about it, you know. She's not necessarily like into it. Like she doesn't quite, you know, it doesn't register for her, you know, which is fine, right? But she doesn't like, you know, belittle it or say it's stupid or anything like that, you know. So, you know, I told her, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm looking at doing, you know. You know, and I don't think I told her it was big, but I don't think she really understood how big it was. And I brought it home, you know, and she's like, "Oh my lord."
Big. Big is not the appropriate word. It's giant. My wife's the same way. You know, she's not super passionate about all the stuff that I'm into, as passionate as I am. But she looks at it and she goes, cool. And she has empathy and she gets joy through my joy. So I'm always mentioning that in my videos. Hats off to all of the boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, and whatever, family, friends who they don't necessarily get it, but they're like, I'm so happy that you're happy.
Right.
You know, they're the best kind of people to have in your life, for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely been, you know, so for the last couple of years, I really was into like the Legos and specifically Star Wars Legos. You know, it's like I had bought the Millennium Falcon, like the UCS, you know, Falcon. As a matter of fact, when I was doing the Star Wars Legos, that's what was here, you know, is the Millennium Falcon. And I found that the Legos and the Millennium, you know, the Star Wars sets, they were very they were kind of a stress reliever. You know, I would just sit down and build it, you know, and kind of get lost in that process, right? And that's kind of been what the Joes have been, honestly, for me. That lately is just locating them. You know, if it's a vehicle, like cleaning it up, again, like restoring it, trying to get everything back together perfect. And it's really been, you know, again, it's like a good stress relief for me. So
I think that vintage toys have taken the place of models, because it seems like 30, 40 years ago, even during the 80s when the toys were coming out, like you would always see people who were a little older working on models, and they'd have the little, you know, the bifocals and or the monocle, and they'd be doing that. And it's very, very intense. And you're thinking, how is this relaxing? You know, but The Ultimate Warrior, one of my personal heroes, always said, life is not worth living without intensity. And that's a form of intensity. Like, that's an intense creativity, to be that tuned in and focused and meticulous about something. That's a beautiful type of intensity. Too many people misunderstand intensity. They just think it's anger. Like, oh, that guy's intense.
Right.
Intensity is not tense. It's intense. It's not the same thing. Tense is bad. Tense is anxiety. Intensity blows anxiety away. Intensity lets you deal with all of, you know, the garbage junk people in life. You know, tenseness makes you shut down and go, oh, I can't handle this. Intensity gets that chest out, gets those fists balling and pounding that chest, and go, I will not stand, man. Like this, I will. Big Lebowski thing. This will not stand, man. So that's
Yeah,
what
no,
I find out of the toys too. Like they're like models, especially Joe's. Like with the little parts and stuff. And people misunderstand. They think, aren't you a little old to be playing with toys? Well, maybe those days of pew pew, zoom, pew pew. Maybe those days are over. Bless you if they aren't. That's awesome for those people who can still do that. But the days of still like appreciating like you said, restoring, piecing things back together, getting the satisfaction of it's fixed, it's complete. That's where the enjoyment comes from.
Right. Yeah. When I was a kid, it's funny. I was not really like a play with my toys type of guy. I was like a set it up,
Me too.
in display. One moment. Let me mid thought here. It's Animal House over here.
Oh, I love it. I love like same with me. We have 2 dogs and a cat, and when my wife and I are sitting in bed and reading and they're all in the bed, like, oh, this is amazing. This is
Yeah. We normally we'll adopt the rescues and that's pretty much all the border collies. We have 2 cats actually. We got one last November and he is I told my wife this total talk about nerd moment, right? I told her, I said, and his name is Boots. And she likes kind of silly names, so she named him Boots Banner. Like the Hulk. Yeah. But I told her, I said, he's very reminiscent of a Fatal Fluffy, Oh,
yeah, from the Joes.
So I call him Fatal Fluffy, especially if he's getting close to my Joes, I'm like, oh, the Fatal Fluffy's he's attacking. But and no, yeah, we're big animal folks and love them. So sometimes you have to deal with a little bit of craziness, but hey, it's all good.
You get used to it. I mean, before I ever had any pets, before I had dogs, before I even had a cat, I remember being over at people's places and the cat hair and the dog hair or the smelly dog, and I'd be like, ew, yuck, just because I didn't have one. And as soon as you own one yourself, sometimes I am covered head to toe. Like, especially when the husky is shedding and you can make a new husky out of that fur, and I don't care because it's like your kid. That's why they call them fur babies, right? And now people do it to me who don't have pets. They're like, oh, yuck. I'm like, hey, don't talk about my fur baby like that. Right. That's the love of my life.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
And sometimes it gets on the toys a little bit, and again, I don't care. It's like, if your own kid, gets all drool and schmutz all over the toy, you don't really care. It's not that big a deal.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of, I've got a bookshelf behind me. That's what the Rolling Thunder's on, and then there's other Joe stuff kind of tucked in there. Like you got the Night Raven, right there, and then there's a whale.
Yeah.
And
Snow Patrol.
What's that?
The Snow Patrol, the polar battle bear, and the snow cat.
Yep, you got it. And then down below that, you probably can't see that, but got a few other items down below there. So, but anyway, like you said, sometimes stuff gets on the shelf, you have to vacuum it, But hey, big deal,
I get asked that all the time. Like, there's different reactions of people seeing my collection, and a lot of the time it's wow, oh my god, that's amazing. How can this be? But sometimes, like, the reaction, instead of wonder, it's, what do you do about dust? And like, I'll literally, I wish I had a little dust brush with me, but I'll just that's what I do. Right. Yeah. It's 3 seconds.
Blow it off.
Blow it off. And we're all done. It's really not that big a deal. So.
Right.
Always looking on the positive side. So is it mostly you collect vintage Joe stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. So when the 25th line came out, like many Joe folks, it was quite like, oh my gosh,
that
this
artwork
looks incredible.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it had to do with the cards, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because at the time, I thought it was all the original art, and it wasn't until later that I found out, via your state. I think it was actually your toy guys talking with
Carson.
That I realized that it wasn't the original. That it was kind of, they tried to make old or new versions of the old art. But anyway, yeah, I was enamored with that, and I bought pretty much every single one. And it got to the point where I had all of them. I didn't really know what to do with them because I left them in the cards.
Yeah.
There were some that I had opened, but by and large, I left them in the card. And hindsight's 2020. I ended up selling them. I sold the whole lot.
Yeah.
And then, a couple years later, it came out with like the Rise of Cobra line, or like the Pursuit of Cobra, I think is what it was. And they had some really cool kind of designs in there. And I bought quite a few of those, and I had them up until recently. But my buddy Steve, who gifted me his childhood collection of the vintage stuff, he was, he's a big Joe fan himself, and I pulled him out one night. We were looking at him, and we were, kind of messing with the accessories and stuff like that. And he was like, "Man, these are really well done. They're really cool. Kind of modern versions, takes on the designs." And I said, "You know what?" I said, since you gave me your vintage stuff, I'm giving you all of these. So I gave him my entire like Rise of Cobra line, our Pursuit of Cobra Joes. I think it was like, it was close to 30 of them, so, and he's like, he put them on his desk, at work and whatnot. So, but, the one thing that I was disappointed in with those is just the feel. You get them out of the card and very bendy. They looked awesome once you had them all set up. But yeah, like you just, that air of kind of, I don't want to say cheapness, but
that's what they were. I love them and they feel cheap. And it's kind of a dichotomy. When I first opened them up, I liked the new design of them. I guess I would have preferred just straight reissues. But there are enough of the original O-rings, so I like the new design. I like that being a little taller. I like some of the posability options, especially being able to properly hold the gun and not just like, like it's in front of the gripped hand. So being able to actually open it and never having to break a thumb again was nice. But I broke the hand off of a couple of them from doing barely anything to it. Like the wrist peg broke off of this bendy material, and I'm thinking, now that shouldn't happen ever. Like this rubbery material, this should never break off. So they look great. I love the meticulousness and the reverence they showed, because if it was on the original figure, it was usually, almost always going to be on the new one, right down to like Spirit's knife and Shipwreck's tattoo, and like every little detail that matters. Right. Every detail that movie executives go, who cares? Whoever designed those Anniversary Joes went, I care. And this ain't leaving the factory unless Doc has, his little things on his helmet and his proper sunglasses, and Torpedo has his red thing on. Like, he has to have it. You don't understand. This is important. So hats off to them for the designs of them. They are modern toys, though, so they're not built to last.
Right. Yeah, I have the same feelings about them. Super cool designs and articulation, like you said, being able to pose them, and then all accessories. Like, you open up. I can't remember the name of it, but there was one that like has kind of like this modern ghillie suit, which is like a bunch of like kind of like pieces on peg that you piece together. It's like a dark green. I just can't remember the name of the figure, but like once it's all set up, it's like you're like blown away. It's just like super detailed and it's amazing to look at. But at the same time, I fully agree with you. But the fact that they, up until that point, were still releasing, you could tell that they still valued the line, right? Like that there was still somebody at Hasbro that was putting their heart and soul into this, and then, now that there's nothing, at least for now, right?
It's napping.
It's so
it's pulling a shipwreck. It's napping.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the new movie coming out, or new movies, apparently. I'm excited about them. I'll be honest with you. I was not a big fan of the two movies that came out, here more recently. They just didn't do much for me. I felt like, what is it? Is it Resolute? What was the movie that...
the one shot? Resolute?
The animated film that they came out with.
Yeah, that was Resolute, the one shot. Yeah.
Yeah, Resolute. That I really enjoyed.
Yeah,
I thought that was awesome. the movies didn't do much for me, but I'm kind of hoping that they maybe are able to get it on track, and with Snake Eyes and whatever the other movie is with Chuckles.
It's rumored to be Chuckles, and I guess a lot of people are up in arms about why Chuckles, and I'm just sitting here going, anybody, I don't care. Like, and literally, like, the last Joe I'd pick is Chuckles, and I don't care. And I'm just looking over at my shelf, like, Airtight. I don't care. Blizzard. I don't, just give us a good Joe movie. Right. And they are like Marvel superheroes. Like, they were created by Marvel. A lot of people forget that. I mean, yeah, they were Hasbro toys, but Marvel had a huge part in creating the Transformers and G.I. Joe. They're like Marvel superheroes. So we don't need like a big save the world Battle of Springfield every single movie. We can do a movie just focusing on one Joe. A couple other guys come in for cameo roles, or it's kind of the way I would look at it is that Spider-Man Homecoming, or the new one, Far From Home movie. Like Nick Fury is in it a bit, Happy is in it a bit. They're not the main characters, but they're just in their bit. So give us a Chuckles movie and have, sci-fi in there for a few minutes and Leathernecks in there for a few minutes. And just stay true to the source material. If Torpedo's in the movie, he needs his red thing. And if any exec goes, that's silly, why is that important? It's like, you need to go out that door. Like, you need to be out of here if you don't understand why that's important. Because it's all about just reverence and staying true to the original stuff.
It's funny because my buddy Steve and I were talking about the same thing, and he's like, they just need to hire us, and by that he means just fans of the property, right? Anyone that's a fan of the property, is kind of what he's getting at, and I agree with that. Now, obviously, it's a lot harder to make a feature-length film than it looks, right? As far as like writing the story and putting it all together. I totally understand that there's a lot that goes into it, but it's just what you said. It's the attention to detail. It's the so I'll give you a perfect example. The Transformer movies. I was especially when the first one came out, I was excited that somebody was giving Transformers some attention, right? So even though like at the end of the day it was kind of like it was okay, really, but I was still just excited that it was a thing. Yeah. And then as it went on, it kind of started, at least in my opinion, it started to kind of devolve.
Oh, me too.
But then they came out with Bumblebee. And I remember I went to go watch it with my friend, and we were sitting there watching the first, 5 minutes where they're on Cybertron, right? And I was like, literally like, oh!
Yeah, they got it right. Six times the charm.
I was blown away, and I was like, so, and again, it goes back to, you could tell that somebody cared, somebody really cared about that. And that's all, really, that's all it takes, right? It takes investment, and and that's kind of what I'm the rest of the movie. I actually enjoyed it. I know that people went a couple different ways on the Bumblebee. I thought it was great.
I loved it,
but I think and of course it's a little bit different kind of style, right? As far as how they would approach it, but I think if we can get something that has that sort of care, and that sort of attention to detail,
and that heart and soul too. I think the problem with a lot of modern stuff is just it's so dark, grim, mean-spirited, trolling the audience. Haha, you cared about this character? Too bad, and just leave the audience going, no, like too many filmmakers get enjoyment from tormenting their audience, and they forget, if you're doing a slasher movie, then that's your job. But if you're doing G.I. Joe, or if you're doing Transformers, or you're doing Star Wars, it's not your job to make audiences feel like they're in a slasher movie. Rambo 5 comes to mind, which I just recently watched, and I describe it as not bad, but it's sure ugly, because it is so depressing. It is a depressing, dark movie, and none of the other Rambo movies were. Like, the fourth one is super violent, but it's not depressing. But this last one was just, why bother? Why go on? Why keep living? Like, it's just so soul-crushing. Entertaining and fun, but man, there's a lot of darkness. So like the 80s cartoons, He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, has such a great spirit to it, and optimism and hopefulness. How do you make a movie out of that property and go, there, we made a Transformers movie in name only? You know, like, there's too many studios who get the name and they think that's all that matters is the name. So they change the design of everything. They change the characters of everybody, and they go, audiences won't care. They're all young. They don't remember this old stuff. And they don't give audiences the credit of being curious. So when a movie studio changes Optimus Prime and they totally change his design and give him flames and make him, you know, murderous and vengeful, and they go, who cares? Nobody remembers the original Prime. Well, you know, not to say that, you know, I've heard from a lot of people with my Optimus Prime video, but I've heard from quite a few people who go, wow, like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt about Optimus Prime. And there's all these people who have just this old concept of Optimus Prime that they haven't really dwelled on. And I didn't dwell on it either until I sat there one day looking at him and going, what's the disconnect here in the new movies? You know, why don't I feel you in the Michael Bay movies? What's the problem here? So I sat down and I did that video, and I didn't even know what I was going to say until I did the video. And so many people are going, man, you nailed it. Like, he's self-sacrificing. And so many of the characters from the 80s are exactly like that. They wouldn't be snarky and have cool one-liners and go, hey, take that, Cobra. Like, Duke would throw himself, or Flint would throw himself on a grenade and tell people, get out of here. But the flip side, or the end of that equation also is, the grenade wouldn't go off. You know, like, we wouldn't be heartbroken when we watch a G.I. Joe movie or a Transformers movie. Like, call it cheesy if you want, but when people parachute out of a helicopter, man, I laugh, and that's a good thing. I've been watching some Rambo Force of Freedom recently, just to kind of wash last blood off of me, wash the last blood off. And I have been laughing so hard every time, like, Rambo's in a tank and he shoots another tank and it explodes, and they hold on the shot and it's burning, and then the guys run out like, ah, they're on flames. Or a plane explodes and then the parachutes, like, just like G.I. Joe.
Right.
I mean, it's wholesome, and I'd like to see more of that, and I'd like for people to throw those criticisms of, oh, that's so cheesy, and just let it kind of float away, because I don't think those criticisms have legs. I don't think there's much weight behind those criticisms. Okay, fine, it's cheesy. So what? It makes me happy. It doesn't depress a lot of people like this other gritty, realistic stuff. So what exactly is the problem? And, you know, the people who like being depressed, they can go watch their slasher movies. And the people who want to be happy, they can just keep watching their wholesome stuff. But my original point was, like, for the kids who don't know this stuff, that's not true. I mean, there's so many kids who, through their parents or just their own curiosity, they hear something's coming out, right? A new Mask movie is coming out. It's been announced, or it's possibly in production, in development. There's so many kids who go, Mask, really? I need to know everything about Mask. And you can find every episode online now, or streaming service. And they will watch it and learn it and get invested. And then when the new movie comes out and the Thunderhawk is like a green Lamborghini, they're like, no, that's this red Camaro. Like, what's going on here? So I don't think they give enough people credit for going back, going through the archives, and being steeped in history too. Right.
No, I agree with that, because, you know, you think of, you know, guys our age, right, that grew up with it, that, you know, even though I don't have kids, you know, I have a lot of friends that do, and, you know, also are excited about, you know, various properties. And it's exactly right. You know, they will show their kids, you know, the old cartoons that they grew up on, especially now that they're as readily available as they are, right? So, and you're right, you know, they'll recognize that this isn't off, or that this isn't right, it's off, you know. And no, I agree with that completely. Yeah, again, it goes back to just, you know, paying homage to the source material and not trying to deviate too far. You know, there's a nice balance, right? And you've got to take it seriously, but also, you know, have some fun with it, right? So, and I think that's what the Bumblebee movie did, you know, in my opinion. You know, definitely had its moments where it's like, wow, like they're really staying true, and it is, serious. But then, like, it had a lot of lighthearted moments, and a lot of, like, just kind of, obviously, I want not to spoil, but like the ending, right? It's
Yeah.
such a cool way to end the movie, So, and again, it goes back to, when it comes to the Joe property, I'm hoping that they are able to do, just capture that same kind of
Spirit.
spirit, right? And same with like the Mask movie, right? So, Mask was a huge, I was a huge fan of Masks as a kid. I had a lot of them, and as I understand it, as part of that Hasbro universe, right?
Yeah, the
Right.
crossover.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're gonna do something with Mask at some point in time, which I'm excited about. So we'll see, But here's the one thing I will say about the Mask movie is it has to have the original theme song in it.
Yes. Pay the man. Pay the man.
Right. And it needs to be the same.
Yeah.
Don't change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like if they did a Jason the Wheeled Warriors movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to have that song.
Although, like, I'm in a unique position because I kind of have, like, I've got my whole body in the toy collecting realm and the fandom realm, but I've got one little toe, or I did, in the actual filmmaking realm. So, although I don't agree with a lot of the things that are done, I understand it a little bit. I go, well, business is business, and they have to do this and that. And sometimes, like, I say, pay the man. Give him what he wants and get that song. I'm with you 100%. But when the head of a very rich corporation says, absolutely not, we're not doing it, we're not doing it. And then go, okay, well, if you have to get someone to, redo it, if you can't get the original recording, get someone to do a cover of it, and it better be spot on. Like, just because there is one on YouTube if you just search for Mask theme cover, and the guy who actually
it's the guy that does all of the
split
does
screen
each instrument.
Yeah, and the guy who sang the original version actually commented on it and said, "Wow, good going." And the guy who did the cover was like, "Well, he just blew my mind." So yeah, that's such a important part. Like, Mask is that theme song. It's got to be in there.
Exactly.
Same with the Joe theme. Go ahead.
Right. Absolutely. So, going back to, you were talking earlier about, some of the characters and who resonated and kind of how Optimus Prime, how you viewed the original Optimus in one way, and like the more modern Optimus in a different way, right? So, of course, everyone has their favorites, right, from their childhood. So, like, who was your favorite? Like, so from the Joe line, who really resonated with you in that universe?
Well, Snake Eyes jumps to mind right away just because of the coolness of the figure and the coolness of the character too. The less is more, the mysteriousness of him. But Duke as well, even though Duke isn't quite on the same level as Optimus Prime in terms of wisdom and father figure. He just didn't get the lines. He didn't get the script,
Sure.
the great scripting that Optimus Prime did. I thought Michael Bell did fantastic with the voice, but I love Duke for his curtness, his focus, his military precision and focus and intensity. Duke to me is what every single Joe aspired to be, and some of them were, Shipwreck or Bazooka. They were a little on the fringe in terms of military discipline. But for me, I just loved how Duke was so like a real world soldier. It's what many soldiers are like. And then the Sarge, like for being completely, off the charts, intense superhero type of thing, destroying 5 bats all by himself. Just like he was a Marvel superhero, Sergeant Slaughter too. How about you?
Flint. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
yeah.
always
Another one of
a
mine, too.
Flint guy. Yeah. And Lady J. I always kind of had a thing for Lady J, and he and Lady J were so it's kind of
That raspy voice of hers, and the fact that Scarlett didn't really come off as all that girly to me. But still, the tight outfit and the flowing red hair. But
Sure.
Lady J was just pure soldier. She had the short hair, the fatigues, and the throaty, the raspy voice. I'm like, man, she is she's awesome. You know,
Yep.
she's just an awesome Joe. Like I never looked at her as that other girl Joe, but just like a
Right.
Joe you want on your team. You know, beside you in the foxhole.
Yeah, with Flint, I think, I think, yeah, just super go get it
So
attitude and
macho. Like
right, right,
you
yeah,
know,
strong and
he's everything Duke wasn't. Like Duke was roll the sleeves up, crew cut, and let's go to town. Like not flamboyant, just bare bones, get the job done. And then Flint comes in with the gloves and the shotgun shells and the
right.
beret. Oh man.
It's funny because I'm looking over at my shelf here and I'll show you this in a little bit, but the way I've got Duke displayed, he, of course, part of it has to do with the expression on Duke's face, the figure.
Yeah.
But Duke's kind of like, he's very, straight laced,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. Whereas like I got Flint right next to him, right? And Flint, I've got him just kind of like, he's got his arms folded,
Yeah.
a little more attitude, a little more, like you said, a little more macho, and such a great voice, and I'm not sure
yeah.
who voiced Duke or Flint, sorry, but man, what an awesome voice. I wish I had that voice.
That big deep voice. Yeah, that big commanding. It's funny that he was
Yes.
second in command to Duke and then later third in command, but he had the most commanding voice of all of them, and then Hawk came in. Joe's, he's got kind of that older, almost like a young grandfather type of delivery, but Flint was like Flint was the one that Duke and Hawk are like, Flint, tell him to fall in. Fall in! He would be, if Sarge or Beachhead weren't there to do like the whole fall in thing, it would totally
Right.
be Flint. And he was also like one of the, I believe, first real muscular jacked Joes.
Yeah.
That was another thing.
I
They
think you're right.
really added some beef to him, especially his forearms. Like he's got the big Popeye
Yeah.
forearms too. This is the shotgun. Like they just went all
Right.
out with. They're like, we're making John Wayne. He's John Wayne.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect way to say it. He truly is John Wayne, absolutely. So, from a figure perspective, though, he's probably my favorite character. But from the figure side, like just the design or maybe the figure you played with most as a kid, like what was maybe that one, or it may still be Snake Eyes, but
That's got to be 85 Snake Eyes because
Yeah.
it just wild, like so little, but when you take a closer look, so much. In the catalog, I was like, what's going on here? Like, yeah, the original figure had nothing really going on. They saved money by not painting it. And then the second figure came out and I saw it in the catalog and went, that's it? Like, they did this to us again? But when you take a closer look, the silver arrow, the dark
Sure.
gray bandolier, the dark gray visor, and then the wolf, and then the sword, which goes into the backpack. My mind was blown. So definitely one of my favorite figures. The Mail Away Sergeant Slaughter. I played with that thing to death. Like I just literally smashed and bashed and clubbed and drop kicked other toys until he broke and fell apart. Like with all the paint worn off too. So
Right.
that was one of the first toys ever that I had to get a second one because I just wore the first one right out. And,
yeah, I was a
and
big
yourself?
Storm Shadow was my main
amazing.
go-to.
First version.
Both. I actually really liked both.
Yeah.
So obviously the first version, got him in the case. Looking at him right now, and then I really liked the '88 Joe Storm Shadow too, and really it was the pattern, the camo pattern. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and
as a
the
matter of fact,
tattoo also.
Yeah, the Rashkage tattoo, right?
Like, what is this? This is before I even read that in the comic. I was like, what is that on his arm? Like, that's...
Right.
And the claw and the... again, a callback to his bow and arrow.
Looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like armed out, right? And the bow and arrow, and it's like super detailed, especially compared to like the first version, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I liked him as well. The one that... And it's kind of funny, I was a kid... And, I, like many kids in the 80s, like I went to daycare, right, during the day, and I would take a Joe toy with me, right, and play with, kids at the daycare
Can
center.
you imagine if you took the Defiant
And I
to
remember-
daycare? Good idea, he says. She said.
But I remember, and I was trying to recall the specifics, but I remember I had a figure. I would bring figures with me, and I was very protective of my Joes. I wouldn't really let other kids play with them too much because I would try to keep them perfect, right?
Good call.
I was just that kind of perfectionist kid,
Yeah.
and I didn't want like the weapons lost. But I remember.
Well, I learned my lesson
that,
one day when I loaned my Megatron to a kid who like broke the arm off, and that's when I learned, right. Not everyone's as careful as I am.
Exactly. But I remember there was a child there that was, I've been racking my brain over this trying to figure out what the circumstances were. But I had a figure, and he wanted them, and he had the Starduster, and I was like, yeah, because I hadn't seen Starduster before, because it was obviously mail away, and I was like 7 years old. I was just kind of, I remember seeing it in the pamphlets and whatnot, but I ended up trading him for that Starduster. And so that ended up being one of my favorite characters, just because I was like I felt like I was the only person that had the Starduster, right? So one sec here.
Sure.
He was one of the ones I had to snag, right? So yeah, so like I've got like he's in perfect shape, but yeah, the Starduster with the visor and the backpack, or the jetpack, whatnot.
Is that a sticker on his helmet or painted on?
It's actually printed on.
Okay.
It's a little like just a round star. Wow. Yeah, and it's printed on there.
That is beautiful.
And so this one came up, and it actually came with the file card.
Cool.
And this was one of the figures I kind of decided that I'm gonna pay the money, pay the man.
Yeah, pay the man.
Yeah, so like, because this one, for whatever reason, like I said, it just really brought back memories from childhood, so this was a big one to me. But yeah, Storm Shadow was my favorite, no doubt about it. And again, you could really credit. I can credit Storm Shadow with getting me back into it again. That Prime 1 statue that I saw, and I was like, this is amazing, and I ended up buying it. And then after that, it was kind of full bore. And then I ended up actually, I don't know if you guys can get these up in Canada. I'm sure you can. Asics, there's a shoe company named Asics. They've been making running shoes for years. They came out with a Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes pair of shoes. And I got the Storm Shadow. I've been meaning to buy the Snake Eyes. But I'll wear those around, and they're actually based off of the '88 version with the camo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll have to go grab them and show them to you. They're pretty awesome.
I've never heard of those.
And yeah, one sec, let me grab them real fast.
Sure, yeah.
So they came out with these, and they're
cool.
Yeah, they're patterned off of the '88, and actually, if you look inside, I don't know if you'll be able to see or not, but there's. You can see them in there, and then it's got the Cobra logo on the back, which is kind of funny because
Joe,
right?
Joe, yeah. That is weird.
Kind of an example, they were a little off, right?
But they wanted to do a Joe and a
so
Cobra.
This is the box they came in.
Oh, that is beautiful.
And it's got the pattern on the side.
Is that that artwork on the front is like probably the biggest that's ever been printed out. That's probably the highest resolution you can get of that artwork.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So they actually have the Snake Eyes as well, and the Snake Eyes pair is mostly black, and it's got red and like some speckles on it. It has a cool look. But they also have the box just like this, and it's the actually the '85 Snake Eyes with timber. It's that image on it, and
so cool.
I need to pick up a pair. But yeah, if you just look up G.I. Joe and then Asics, it's ASICS. I'm sure they'll pop up, but you have to get yourself a pair of those.
I got to check that out. I was just assuming you meant the shoes from Retaliation, because Storm Shadow wears sneakers. Like, he wears shoes in that movie. And
right.
I love, Storm Shadow in that movie. But the one thing about the one reason I didn't get the Hot Toys was like, he's wearing sneakers. Like, where's the ninja shoes, the ninja boots? Like, he's wearing sneakers. But I did end up getting the Hot Toys Snake Eyes figure, because it just, up until that point, it was awesome to see a live action Snake Eyes done for the most part fairly right, and that silent interlude scene in Retaliation. if you don't get anything out of that movie, at least like people have got to get something out of that silent interlude scene. It's great to see that
Right.
in the movie as
Right.
well. We're at about an hour now, and it's just flown by. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking we're going to definitely have to do this again soon because this has been a blast.
Sure.
But just to wrap up, to get back to the Patreon, how are you liking? That's a kind of I guess, a misleading question. How are you liking? How are you loving Patreon and the community that we have on there?
Yeah, so I've just been a part of it recently. As a matter of fact, I had just been following you on YouTube. And then, just recently I decided, it's like, you know what, I'm going to actually go on to the Patreon and check it out. And it was kind of at that point where I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and join the tribe. Right. So, no, it's been great. It's cool that, it's kind of one of those things where, if somebody's a fan of your content, which obviously I am, it's great because as much as there is on YouTube, there's that much more on, the Patreon, and you get the access to it earlier, obviously. But then there's also, you're able to interact with like-minded people, right? Which is probably the most important part, right?
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
So it's fun to share memories and see what other people are posting and whatnot. So no, it's great. Again, it's still very new to me. I think this is like maybe my second week. So I'm still making my way through some of the content that is exclusive. But no, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And there's a lot of people who really enjoy what I do, and I'm ever so grateful for that. And there's some people who have a misconception of Patreon, and I had one too before I started one. When it was first recommended to me a while back, someone, a couple of people said you should start a Patreon, and I was like, nah, crowdfunding, I don't know about that. And I didn't know what it was, and now I do. And I always describe Patreon as it's Facebook as it should have been. I go on Facebook so often, and I do, chat with some friends and post some stuff on the page there. But there's so much negativity that, it's also like Twitter. It's like Twitter should have been, all these online, it's like YouTube should have been. There's a lot of negativity and toxicity, and you kind of have to, you always feel like or I do anyway, navigating, around the dangerous radioactive material to get to the good stuff. Patreon has no radioactive material like that. The page, it's set up just like a group, like a fan group, like a fan page. There's a community wall where I can post stuff. Or the main feed where I post, and then there's a community wall where everyone else posts stuff. So that's one thing I never expected, and it's so fulfilling and satisfying to see friendships grow. And it's not just me going, hey, you got to chat with this guy, and I'm kind of moderating a 3-way chat. People have become really good friends, and they're chatting with each other and exchanging things and helping each other complete certain things in their collection. And that just warms my heart. So, for people who really enjoy what I'm doing, I don't know if you got this about me. I don't like tooting my own horn, but for the people who really dig what I'm doing, and they always say those really nice, heartfelt things about what I do, there's more people like me on Patreon who are always contributing, who are always adding to the discussion. They're just adding their joy and their passion and their love. And, thank God they're on there, because they make it my favorite place on the internet to go. There's never any argument or bickering or negativity or sensitivity. We're just so like-minded, and it's such a healthy, fun community that it amazes me that it exists, and I'm grateful for it every single day.
Right. Yeah, from my perspective, it was one of those things where, I really understand the value of people's time. And I can tell, again, let's put it this way, I've spent so much time enjoying your videos that I felt like it was my obligation to support what you do, right?
Appreciate that.
Because again, I've gotten so much enjoyment out of it, right? And it's content that you've spent countless hours probably putting together, right? And it's just what you said earlier, getting better equipment and
Yeah.
kind of upgrading the experience, right? So yeah, anything I can do to support that and help that, I'm happy to do. And I hope that others feel the same way. And obviously they do, right? You've got a pretty good group going. So, and hopefully there's more that come into the fray, right? And join the group as well. But yeah, no, it's awesome so far. I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad, I had this opportunity to talk to you, obviously. And yeah, looking forward to doing it again. I noticed, like you had posted up like I think it was the Resolute, like you were looking at maybe doing a
commentary.
Right. And I think that'd be awesome to be able to, join in on that, so,
Absolutely.
Cause for me, actually, it would only be, like my second time watching it. I've only watched it once, and so I kind of want to watch it again. So, yeah, I mean, I've watched G.I. Joe, the movie, 40,000 times,
Yeah.
right? So it was really cool to kind of switch gears a little bit and, see the similar content in a different form, not format, but a different, from a different angle. Right. So no, I could tell though that, with special events like that, so that, that you host, that it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you don't have to be an expert on anything. As some people,
right.
They have this idea that I can't take part because I'm not an expert. I've only seen it once or twice and I don't know it inside out. But the commentary is something to be experienced in the moment. Like there's always something happening on screen as we're watching it. And just to be clear to people who don't realize this, we aren't actually streaming the movie. Like you play your own movie on your TV or your computer or something. We're not streaming it all together and watching the same one because it won't be shown, right, on the channel. That's a no. We can't be doing that. That's copyright infringement. But right, we can, queue it up and we sync it up just like the audience when they're going to watch it. And we just watch what's going on. We make observations about what's happening, and anybody can do it. And you don't have to be an expert. And people who are maybe they're a little hesitant because they're like, "Oh, I'll be ripped apart on the internet." No, you won't be. You won't be because
who cares?
No, well, yeah, because I moderate the comments and I don't let it slip by, and I barely ever see that stuff anyway. But if one does pop up, it doesn't slip through the cracks. So you're basically bulletproof. So it's awesome to be able to do that with really great people. And
right,
if people can support on Patreon, only do it if you're in a position to be able to do it. But like the lowest tier is $1. So right, I've always said when it comes to the Patreon, I'm not greedy. The exclusives are available, to everybody, the exclusive videos. And then, as you go up, the way Patreon is set up, then there's a couple of rewards for people who are able to contribute a little bit more, like the commentaries or the ninja level, an appearance on Toy Guys Talking. So thanks so much for being on Toy Guys Talking.
Yeah, it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. And I look at it as like a subscription. Yeah. It's kind of how I view it, as far as like supporting the channel. So no, it was great. I had a blast, and I look forward to doing it again sometime and joining you for some of the other activities that you've got set up on the channel as well, on the Patreon channel. So
awesome. And I guess before we sign off, you were going to show us your Joe collection.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's see if I can do this. Well with my laptop.
Don't knock the Defiant over.
Right. Let me, and I'm gonna put Starduster back here. Bear with me. So I've got a nice little glass case that's got
keeps the dust
the
out.
Overwhelming majority. So
whoa.
Yeah. So
hallelujah.
Yeah, so I take a lot of pride in how I display.
This must be what people feel like when they walk into the 80s toy museum. Wow.
Yeah, here's all the dreadnoughts, and then down at the bottom I've got just a moray. That's kind of the main case. Pretty cool. And then
Beautiful.
the Defiant. So, excuse me one sec.
I love how you have the lighting all on glass and lighting. Those figures are just amazing. And Yeah, you got the wow.
And I've got guys set up on there. Hopefully you can kind of make that out.
Yeah,
And,
sci-fi actually looks.
kind of got a little scene going. Yeah.
Sci-fi looks great in there.
Here's our buddy Chuckles.
Yeah, there's the movie star.
And I've got a hard top. You can kind of,
cool.
I'm trying to, it's kind of awkward to angle.
That's so cool.
And then, you've got the Rolling Thunder, and then again, the Night Raven. There's an X-19 kind of tucked back there.
Oh, yeah, the Phantom. Yeah, that is a big ship.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites as a kid. And then, this is actually the 30th anniversary Sky Striker, which I thought was great.
Yeah, with the black
and then
fins.
I forgot, up above the case is a Tomahawk.
The Tomahawk.
So here is
Beautiful.
So again, this is kind of what got me into back into these Joes.
Wow.
So that's the
Holy
Prime One Storm Shadow, and then
that's gorgeous.
Yeah, there's the Snake Eyes.
Oh, those look great side by side.
Yeah, they're you can kind of, I'll get out of the way here. You can kind of see they're kind of designed to look like they were, facing off.
Yeah.
And what's kind of cool about these is that they have, and again, let me angle. You can swap out, so right now Storm Shadow's got the bow, but you can swap out arms. Like you can take the arms off and swap out for swords.
Oh, that's great.
And then same goes for Snake Eyes. I've got them with swords right now, but you can swap them out to have both hands with guns, one hand with a gun, one hand with a sword. Even Timber has a swap out head.
Oh,
This one
cool.
he's growling. There's another one where he's more just kind of, he's just gritting his teeth as opposed to having an open mouth.
So it keeps it.
These are amazing. Unbelievable. If I will say that if there's anyone that has thought about buying these, and you're a fan, absolutely do yourself a favor. Oh, sorry. One last thing down here.
There's the Terrordrome.
And actually, I've got it.
Oh,
so I've got it kind of so I can light it up a little bit.
Oh, that's great. Wow. What a setup. I've seen a recent custom where someone took that rope light type of thing you can get.
Yeah.
Really easy custom. They just ran it along the inside of the Terrordrome, and so it lights up, those gaps that are on the top floor. Just it has lights coming out of it. Really simple, easy, cheap custom, but that's something I need to do.
I've been thinking about doing that myself. I saw something similar, and it really kind of the compartments underneath there, where the jail is, right? Because I've got Beachhead in the jail.
Oh yeah.
But you can't really tell, So, and actually the Terrordrome was where the Defiant was, and it was really perfect where it was. And I was like, how am I gonna do this? So I ended up moving the Terrordrome down below and then putting the Defiant up top. And I kind of feel bad because I don't feel like the Terrordrome's getting its due, but at the same time, it's not bad. You can see it pretty well where it's at. So
it's such a tough thing to display because it's a 360 base, and there aren't that many 360 bases. Most of them have a face, and then some of them are like the flag, which it has a front, it has a back, sort of has a back, but the Terrordrome, I've never felt like I've ever found the right place to put it because it always feels like it's just kind of in the middle of, the way. It's in the way wherever I put it. So, yeah. Yeah,
and it's too big to you can't really bookshelf it because it's so big around, right?
Yeah.
And then like you said, you're going to be losing out on some part of the detail.
Yeah.
You're right. It is kind of a hard one to display for sure.
But first world problems, right? First world problems. Wah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I debated on how I was going to do the Defiant, how I was going to display it, and I kind of landed on obviously having it kind of in launch position, right, or pre-launch, and that and then I decided that I thought it looked really cool with having the doors, the bay doors open and whatnot, kind of looking like it was, like they were getting it ready to go.
Yeah.
So this is how it'll stand for now. Yeah. I couldn't be happier with this thing. I'll be honest with you.
It looks awesome.
It was such a blast to put it together and restore it. And I lucked out on a few things. So for example, I've got the umbilical, which is pretty hard to get.
Yeah.
of course I've got payload, and hard top. I've got, the little, jetpack thing for payload. I just kind of have it set inside here. But, yeah, it's been a lot of fun to put it back together. And, I sourced the decals through, Toy Hacks.
Yeah, they're the best.
And they're actually up. I don't know if they're by you, but they're Canadian, right?
Yeah,
so
they're down the road in the Toronto area. Yeah.
Okay.
When they used to be repro labels, and then they changed over to Toy Hacks, but top quality, better than the originals. Like the whole argument of, should you re-sticker, should you repro label or not? Like they blew, in my opinion, that argument away just by having the most amazing. It's not just stickers, like the texture of their stickers is like, yes, this is really high quality stuff they're using here.
I was really happy so on the original Defiant, the stickers on some of the part of the gantry, not all of the gantry, but part of the gantry were kind of a paper sticker as opposed to the I guess vinyl sticker.
Yeah.
But the ones that Toy Hacks gives you are the vinyl for those, and they're much nicer. I much prefer them. So yeah, I've ordered, obviously I ordered an entire sticker set for this, and I was really happy with it. I think I'm going to do the same thing for the Rolling Thunder. I'm going to get a set for it. Actually, the decals on it are pretty good shape, but I was like, you know what, I want to make it like pristine, so I think I'm going to do that. And then I've got a few extra figures that are complete. So for example, I've got another complete Storm Shadow, V1 Storm Shadow, and I think I'm going to give the old reproduction cards a shot. I just for fun, because it goes back to the card art. I just love the card art.
I've been debating getting those. Beggars Canyon has them.
Yes, that's who I've been looking at.
For a few years now, I've been debating, like, man, I'd love it, but it bothers me that it's a one shot. Like, you have to glue it and you're done. It's not a resealable. If it could just be like, some of those clamshell type of things where you can punch some of the Transformers come in this type of plastic where there's like a dot and a hole, and you can punch the dot into the hole and it's secure.
Yeah.
If they could just do that with the Joe bubbles, so that there you got it on card, but if you want to open it and display it for a while, just give us some, kind of like your statues, like give us a little bit of variety, change the arms, just because it looks awesome, but it sits there for a year or 2 years, and you're like, it'd be nice to freshen this up, and then you put a new set of arms on it. Same with the carded figure. Like, after 2 years, it's like, it'd be nice to open it again, put it on a shelf. Just give us that option to do it. Yeah,
I've been debating, so above the Snake Eyes and the Storm Shadow, that's kind of what my idea was to maybe get those two figures carded and kind of put them above those two statues, as a final display piece. But then I've been debating maybe some other type of artwork to put over them that represents Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, right? So
maybe the shoe boxes.
Yeah, actually, you're right. I haven't even thought about it, but they would work. I mean, they just kind of set them up there on a shelf. Yeah, probably would be good.
Someone needs to get those over to Carson at 3D Joe's, so you can scan that and do a big blow up picture poster of them.
That's a good point. I mean, it really is. I mean, I got the box obviously still here, but I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's big, right? It's a good sized box. I mean, and it's exactly what you said. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it's the only thing that kind of stinks about it is that you've got some of the unevenness due to the corrugated material. So it's a little wavy. But I mean, I don't know if you can pick up on that, it
looks amazing.
Gear. Right. So it looks really good.
It's like 4 times bigger than the original card art. So.
Right. And I think it is, it looks to me like the original art. Yeah. I don't there's nothing about it that makes me think otherwise. Mm. And then I'm just going to have to go get the Snake Eyes pair.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I have those. They actually have them just down at my local Foot Locker, which is just down the street. They've got them in stock.
So they're new, they're in stores right now.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, if you told me your size, I could go get you a pair right now.
Oh boy. Wow. Well, I'm a notoriously hard foot to fit. I'm a 12.5 US. So you know, 12 is a little small, 13 is a little big, and I'm like, why did I have to be in the middle? But I'm definitely hitting my local, you know, shoe stores and checking this out because that looks awesome.
So they are a Foot Locker exclusive, I will tell you. And I don't know, do you guys have those up there?
Yeah, we have one in every mall.
So what you can do actually is use their app, use the Foot Locker app, and search, and you can probably do it through the website too. But search in for that, just put G.I. Joe, and it'll pop them up. And they actually came out with some other stuff. They came out with like this fanny pack that's like the same pattern as the Storm Shadow. And they have a really nice like new era Cobra hat that has like the Cobra emblem, the really nice baseball hat, you know, not just like a kind of a cheap one, really nicely made. And then there's a one with Snake Eyes, like the Snake Eyes face, and it's got the Rush Kage logo on the side. Yeah. And then there was one other one. So they had like, it was kind of like this whole little like line that they came out with. And it flew under the radar. A lot of people don't know they exist. But just get on the website and do like a search, you know, in the area, and you never know, you know. I mean, if you're close to Toronto, you know that you might be able to find them locally. At least then you could try them on, right? But they're super cool. It was funny when I went to go get these. I asked them about them. I asked the people in the store, and they were kind of like, "Oh, you know, no, they're not available yet. They haven't been released." This was probably back in like, I don't know. This is probably about a year ago, actually. And I said, no, they're released. You know, here, look on the, you know, and they're like, oh, I guess you're right. Because I was like starting to get nervous. Yeah. I was like, I need my Storm Shadow shoes. So
show them the tattoo. Look, hold them at arrow point.
One other thing that's cool about them is that they actually they came with gray laces and red laces.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, you could swap, and the same with the Storm or the Snake Eyes, you know, you can put the red laces in, or I think it's like maybe black laces in there. So you can kind of, and actually I toyed around with actually doing like one pair of gray lace, one pair of red lace, you know, just kind of make it kind of stand out. But no, they're super cool. I mean, and actually check this out. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the bottom has, and I don't know why they did this, but the bottom has like this Zartan like in the sole. Do you see that? I don't know if you can kind of see that.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. And I don't know why they did that. But
I guess he has some ties with the Rush Kage.
The inside of there again. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got the two heads.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, super cool. Like if you're a fan, I mean, how could you not want to get a pair of these?
Yeah. So. And those are Reebok?
Asics.
Asics. Yeah. Okay. They almost look like the Reebok swipe thing on the side there. Yeah. So they do have kind of like like kind of like this shape here, right? Like kind of like the way that it's angled, but this is the brand Asics. Asics. Well, that's awesome. It's nice to see something new from G.I. Joe. Out in stores.
These came out. Like I said, I've got the receipt here. Let's see. I bought these, and I bought them like right when they released. It was earlier this year. It was March. It was March of this year.
Yeah, should be still available. So, well, Joe is coming back. Like Joe fans, don't worry. It's just snapping. You know, and when it comes back, I will remind people, remember when everyone thought Joe was dead and I was sitting here, you know, week after week saying it's just napping. You got to kill it to revive it. And that's what's happening here. But, you know, I'm not usually a fan of that type of stuff. Like I don't need a G.I. Joe, pajamas or anything like that. But those look awesome. Like, especially that, like, camo is so specific to Storm Shadow. It's not like regular urban or Arctic camo. It's so specific to him, so that's just wild to see it on a shoe.
Right. What's funny is that I wear these a lot. You know, this is like one of my favorite pairs because they're super comfortable too. But I can't tell. I mean, people have just come up like and complimenting me like, man, those are really cool looking shoes. And I'm like, thank you. And then sometimes, depending on who it is, like I'll go further and I'm like, well, they're actually based off the G.I. Joe. And they're like, oh, and like they like, I had no idea. So, I mean, that's the other cool thing about them is that, even if you're like, you don't have to be a fan of Joe to like appreciate this, like how cool they look. They have a really it's just like you said, it's that design. It's just like really, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. with the box and the shoe, you could tell that somebody cared, right?
Yeah.
And that it meant something to someone, so like it wasn't just like something stuck on, right?
Yeah.
They actually, because it's like, that pattern's like in the shoe. It's not like something that you can like, scratch off. It's like in there, and it's permanent. So anyway, you should see if you can find yourself a pair, get the snake eyes ones, right? And, or, get them both, so.
Walk around town with a sword on my back.
Right.
What do you need that for, sir? I don't know, cutting cheese.
Right.
But thanks again, Matt. It's been so awesome chatting with you. And I encourage all people out there watching this, all toy fans, talk to people. Texting and tweeting and stuff is cool, but I'm always saying, like, get on the Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is and talk to people, because all it takes is a few minutes and you've got a great new friend and a great good brother or good sister. You learn so much more about a person being able to see their face. And, there's people watching us right now. And how much better is this because you can hear us and see us instead of like this long tweet transcript of like tweeting for 2 hours back and forth. So I just encourage people to do that. And on the Patreon, people have been doing that. They've been calling each other, Skyping, and it's awesome. So I'm so happy to see it. But big thanks to you. Thanks for chatting with me on Toy Guys Talking. Is there anything you want to plug, like any social media, like Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or anything like that?
I mean, not anything of mine really, but obviously,
something you're a fan of.
So one thing that really I just love, and I don't know if you've seen this on Instagram, but I think his name is, I'm sure I'll mispronounce it, but it's Mate Millar.
Not familiar.
Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. I hope you're obviously you're sitting down. Let me just pull it up real quick. So I will pub this just because I don't think you're familiar with it, but the stuff that this guy does is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Let me pull it up real quick, and I'll try to show it on the screen here. So what he does is he takes the toys, he takes the Joes, and he sets up photo shoots, for them. But he does them to this ridiculous degree as far as like how they look, but he tries to mimic the box art. So what he'll do is he'll take usually most of his images are 3 images. One is of the box art, or it could be like a comic book strip. Sometimes he'll do it from the original Marvel comics. Then he'll have the photo, that he takes that mimics it. And then he'll actually have like a little brief video of kind of like how he set it up. So like it has like, just like the studio and how he has everything set up. So I'll just let me pick one here as an example. This would be a good one. So this is the Vamp, and one sec, it's loading. So, okay. So this is the picture he took of the Vamp.
Whoa.
And, then of course there's the box, right? Yeah. And then like what he does is he has like this little video that kind of shows how he set it up.
I've seen this. I've seen these like with the recreated explosion. Yeah, I've seen this on Instagram.
So he's from Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Ah, a Canuck.
And
he's a fellow hoser, eh?
And it's Mate Millar, so Matemylar.
Yeah.
So I will pub him because what he does, whoever like if he's watching, I hope incredible, absolutely incredible. I mean, and it's amazing. Again, it goes back to just the attention to detail and the amount of you can just tell by the amount of time that he puts into it.
The explosions
he did a really,
and like the missile firing and the smoke trails and just incredible creativity and artistry.
This was one of my favorites. So it's of the comic, and I think it's getting blown out a little bit.
The Rattler.
And the Sky Striker. So he was mimicking this image.
Cool.
Gosh, I can tell it's getting blown out, but from the comic.
I'll pop it up on the screen here for folks to see it a little better.
Just take a look at his stuff.
Okay,
It's
we'll
incredible.
pop up a link for him on the screen there. Joe fans, you got to check that stuff out. It is amazing. And hope everyone out here enjoyed this chat. I certainly did. It was awesome to get to chat with you and to see all your cool stuff. What an amazing collection you have. Thank you so much. And we're going to talk again soon on the roundtables,
absolutely.
hopefully on the commentaries on the Patreon. Everyone out there, thanks a lot for watching. And until next time, yo, Joe!